So yeah, thanks for the introduction. While I set up the slide, maybe I already can say I'm really happy to finally have a real audience in front of me, because the last 2 years I've been doing presentations towards my screen. Never so really, is there really an audience or is someone listening? So finally I can see your faces, and if I'm starting to get boring or you get hungry, then I can see it at least. So today I will be talking about end-to-end service orchestration, because it's really of a strategic value for telecom operators, and we really believe it's important that also operators can own this process. So first, I want to talk about the journey. I got inspired by a presentation from Roy last year, I think at this event, but a virtual edition. I tweaked it a bit, some details, but in the end, the details are not that important. The end goal is still this autonomous self-organizing network, but as has been told before today, also Benoit yesterday, before we can do these kind of things, we need this intent-based orchestration, because if we want to have the AI tell us what to do, then you also want them to be able to do it and not just depend also on a human person to do certain steps. So you really need this intent-based approach, also full automation. But you see, it's a long journey to get there, and that's it's a bit, if you see all the steps before that, it's not an intent-based approach. We see like if there can be a faultless execution, but it still doesn't mean there's no guarantee that you have the outcome that you expect, and it's also hard and expensive to maintain, definitely at a large scale. So when I talk with people about end-to-end service orchestration, they also see it like, oh, that's a lot of work, it's still a lot of to do. It's for the future. We first have to do different steps and have to go through a lot of processes, and finally we will get there somewhere in the future. So it feels to me like a kind of a Valhalla of orchestration. You have to go to this painful journey. You almost have to die in battle, and then finally get there, and you can enjoy the benefits. So the big question is, do we really have to follow this journey, this specific path? Are there no alternatives? It's like Roy mentioned, I think yesterday, we're stuck in first gear, we have to go to fifth or sixth gear. Can't we go directly to there? Or maybe take an electrical car, and there are no gears anymore, we get immediately the full power. So my answer is, no, we don't have to follow this. There are alternatives, and actually the path you take is defined by your approach. So the typical approach is more the bottom-up approach. We know what we have certain infrastructure, and we start building on top of that. We do some automation here, some automation there. We start building with scripts, some tools, workflows. It's organic growth, and often there is not always a clear focus, so we get to several directions, and it takes a long time to get where we want. While the other approach is more top-down. We start from what is the service that we want to automate, what are the business requirements, and then start refining. And it doesn't have to be a really complex thing. You can scope this down and then iteratively make it more advanced. And I call this the shortcut to Valhalla. So because shortcuts, sometimes they are risky, but other moments they can also make your life easier. Maybe also a first step before what I mean with end-to-end service orchestration, it's really 100% automation. It's covering multiple domains. It doesn't have to, but it can cover multiple domains. The full service lifecycle, also integration with the relevant OSS BSS components for that specific service, security, but also last but not least, kind of a service supply chain and automated testing, so that you can quickly make changes and push them through your CI/CD pipeline and get it to production as soon as possible in a reliable way. That's also part for me as end-to-end service orchestration. Then your service really fully automated. And that has as benefit, of course, the on-demand self-service delivery. They are the typical benefit, but you can also accelerate the creation of new revenue streams. You have massive efficiency gains because you can have more reusable, maintainable automation, which is really important in terms of cost. And then this will be then the building block for your future autonomous networks. Of course, this is quite abstract, so I also just took a simple example based on a real cases, but I simplified it just to make it more easier to illustrate. So this example is about a cloud interconnect service or a cloud leased line where an enterprise wants to order a private line towards public cloud providers. And as input, it's just like, okay, I want a cloud interconnect, this kind of bandwidth between this customer and Amazon in Frankfurt, for example. That's the only input I want to give. It's very high level. And then we have this refinement of this service. Okay, we have this cloud interconnect. We can maybe split it up in, it's an Ethernet service model, it's a cloud connect model, and then somewhere we have to map it to a vendor-specific solution. So it's really, we start from a generic model, go to specific model, but there are multiple levels of abstraction. It's not like, okay, I have to find somewhere one level of abstraction so I don't have too much work at the top and also not too much work at the bottom. No, we create an abstraction layer as high as possible so you can create this high-level API with only a few parameters, but you also want a layer of abstraction really close to the vendor-specific parts so that you have a large part that is vendor-agnostic that you can keep on reusing across multiple use cases. And in between, you can create multiple layers of abstraction. I just use in this example a simple one, only one, but there can be much more depending also on the case. And it's also not necessarily always go that low level. For example, in network slicing, for example, your service would be maybe in a mobile IP VPN on top of in a network slice. And the lowest layer is the network subslice management function that is provided. So it's not necessarily that you have to go that low level. So we can add some scenarios on that. For example, okay, I want to add a new vendor or new cloud provider. There you can see you aim to reuse as much as possible those service models. So that, and the service model is not only the service modeling, but you also reuse the automated tests that have been created for these services. So that when you add a new vendor or you switch a vendor, that you can just run your automated test and you can immediately verify it's still working, and you can quickly go to production with these with these changes. Another change could be like, okay, I have this model, sub-service model. Actually, I have a vendor who can provide this as one block with a domain controller, and then you can easily change that. So that's why I talk with these multiple layers of abstraction. Depending on what you want to do in the future, have flexibility. You should be able to plug in other components that maybe cover more parts than that you don't want. You don't want to do everything in the cloud model, in these service models. Another would be like maybe you had this Ethernet service model, but then you say, oh, I want to apply the MEF standards and apply carrier Ethernet. You want to localize this complexity within this service model without having an impact on all the other parts. So you can keep on reusing a lot of parts of this service model. Same thing. Okay, now you have it standardized. Why not exposing it also as a separate service, not only for your cloud interconnect, but maybe also as a layer 2 VPN you want to expose, or you want to combine it with firewall service. So there are a lot of opportunities to reuse this across multiple services without having to redo this automation every time again. And then finally, you could do some extensions, evolutions, etc. So there are a lot of possibilities, but by creating these multiple layers of abstraction, you can reuse a lot of things, and that's actually to keep things maintainable in the long term, so that you don't have to, for every change, start over again, because that's where we lose time, where you spend a lot of effort and money while you should focus on creating value for your customers. I guess now some will think like, okay, that's all nice, but this will cost a fortune to build it. I disagree, but of course, that's my opinion, so I will give you some information about our experiences, and it's up to you to decide whether it's more expensive or not compared to the traditional approach. So if we compare like the initial end-to-end orchestration effort, using this top-down approach for your first service or the initial service, compared to a bottom-up approach where you do have a focus, like, okay, I want to automate this specific service, I think, in my opinion, it's somewhat the same effort or even less. In our experience, we went into production from scratch, having only a service orchestration, and then we have to develop all the modeling and all the stuff, all the testing, automated testing, all included, integrations with OSS, BSS. We went into production within 6 to 12 months with a team with less than 5 persons. So it's like Stefan, I think, mentioned during the ZSM workshop where he referred to Rakuten cases where they work together with a team of 15 persons and said, you can do it with a small team. I can only confirm it. You can do it. And this range of 6 to 12 months, it all depends on the complexity of the service, also on how many requirements you have to get from the service provider, and they also have to gather this, setting up a lab environment, and also UAT processes that can take sometimes a bit longer. But then you did this initial investment and you think, okay, let's say it's similar to the normal approach. When you then start creating the evolutions and extensions, then we're talking about an order of magnitude less effort than the initial one, because you did the automated testing. You can keep on reusing it, so it speeds up development and a lot, because we can reuse a lot of the service modeling. We can reuse the testing, so every change you can immediately also verify it through this pipeline, which also ensures the quality. It is, I think, also really critical for telecom services. So that's are the information I can share, and then it's up to you to decide what you think, which road you will take. Do you take the common journey, or maybe you like also shortcuts and take the risk to try this shortcut. So end-to-end service orchestration, it's a big opportunity. It's a necessity actually in the end to get to the more autonomous networks, because it brings a lot of value to the customer, but also for the operator there are a lot of efficiency gains. And we really believe that the telecom operators should take ownership of this as soon as possible and then pick the right journey to get there. Okay, thank you. I know I'm the last one before lunch, so if there are questions, I'm definitely willing to answer them, but if you prefer to go to lunch, we have a booth, we can also talk there and discuss. So.